I wasn't trying to snoop. That's the part one keep going over in my head. I didn't open the trunk expecting drama. I just wanted to shift around the duffel bags to make room for snacks. We'd stopped outside a small-town grocery store, halfway between Colorado Springs and Santa Fe. The kids were arguing over whether they wanted cheddar popcorn or sour cream chips. I figured I'd grab both to avoid the debate entirely. The sun was bright and low, the kind that made you squint even with sunglasses on. I lifted the trunk, one hand shielding my eyes, and that's when I saw it. Perfectly wrapped silver box. Not huge, maybe the size of a shoebox. Silver wrapping paper. A satin ribbon tied so carefully I didn't want to touch it. Sitting there like it had been placed intentionally, centered between our bags like the final piece of luggage. But I hadn't packed it. I just stood there, staring at it. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe a gift from Haley to me? But why hide it in the trunk? And why not mention it? It wasn't the kind of thing you overlooked. The wrapping was elegant. Something from a boutique, not Walgreens. The paper had that glossy sheen that reflected light in subtle gradients. And the ribbon. It wasn't your average dollar store type. It was thick, double-sided, neatly curled at the ends. Someone cared about presentation. I glanced at the kids through the rear window. Emma was still buckled in, coloring in a notebook, tongue sticking out slightly the way it does when she concentrates. Noah had his headphones on, nodding to something on his tablet. They looked peaceful, content. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the box, just in case. Then I called Haley. She picked up after a couple rings. "Hey, everything okay?" "Yeah," I said as casually as I could. "Just stopped at that little grocery off I-25. Thought we'd stretch our legs." "Good idea," she replied. "The kids doing okay?" "Yeah." Actually, quick thing, when I opened the trunk, I saw this silver-wrapped gift box. "Was that you?" Silence. Not long. Maybe a second, two max. But silence doesn't need to be long to feel loud. "Oh, that," she finally said, like she just remembered it. "That's probably Emma's. She's been wrapping things lately. You know how she is." I glanced back at the box again. It was pristine, like something you'd get from one of those high-end department stores downtown. I thought about Emma's usual wrapped gifts. Crumpled printer paper taped around a toy, scribbles and stickers everywhere. "Huh," I murmured. "She's getting good, then. This one looks like a pro job." Haley gave a tight laugh. "Yeah. She's been watching those DIY videos online." I didn't say anything right away. Just nodded, even though she couldn't see it. "Cool. Just wasn't sure if I was supposed to keep it hidden or something." "Nope," she said quickly. "Just let her surprise you. You know how kids are." We talked a bit more about the hotel and where she wanted to meet. I let it go. I didn't bring it up again. But something shifted in me right then. Just a small click. Like when you realize a door isn't actually shut all the way. You push it gently and it opens, but you didn't expect it to. And now it's open and you can't ignore that anymore. On the way into the store, I kept replaying her tone in my head. Not defensive, but not quite right. Like she was trying to sound casual but hadn't had time to come up with a better lie. It wasn't the pause people pause all the time. It was the type of pause. The kind where your brain scrambles for a version of the truth that won't raise questions. Inside the store, I let the kids pick whatever snacks they wanted. I wasn't in the mood to make decisions. My mind kept drifting back to the trunk. To the way she said, "Probably Emma's," instead of, "Oh yeah, that's for..." I knew our daughter. She didn't have the patience to wrap something that neatly. Her idea of a gift was drawing a picture and folding it into fourths. Sometimes she taped on glitter glue and forgot to let it dry. And our son? Noah's barely interested in anything that isn't pixels or Legos. There was no way he had a hand in that. When we got back in the car, I peeked at the box one more time before shutting the trunk. Same place. Same silence. I started the engine and got us back on the road. The kids were chatting now, munching on chips, laughing about some silly game. I should have felt relaxed. We were heading out on a surprise trip. Something I'd planned hoping it might reignite something between Haley and me. She'd been distant lately. Said work was overwhelming, that the training in Santa Fe was a chance to refocus. So I decided to drive down with the kids and surprise her. She'd love that, right? That's what I told myself. But the gift changed something. A seed planted. Tiny. Barely there. But seeds grow. I tried to push the thought away to focus on the scenery. Red mesas and low hills, the kind of landscape that looks painted in layers. I smiled when Emma pointed out a cloud shaped like a dinosaur. Laughed when Noah made it burp. But the box stayed in the back of my mind. When we stopped for gas in Raton, I checked again. Still there. Unmoved. Untouched. I considered opening it. Just a peek. But something about that felt wrong, like once I looked, I couldn't take it back. Instead, I stared at it for a while, like it might reveal its secrets if I just stared long enough. That night at the hotel, I tucked the kids in and sat by the window with a warm soda, watching the stars over the desert sky. Haley texted goodnight. I replied with a heart emoji and nothing else. I didn't mention the box again. But I didn't forget it either. We were 2 hours out from Santa Fe when the memories started hitting harder than the road beneath the tires. The kids had nodded off in the back, Emma clutching her stuffed fox like it was a life raft and Noah curled up in a hoodie 2 sizes too big for him. I lowered the volume on the radio and just drove. Let the road take the lead while my thoughts spun out of control behind the wheel. That gift had changed things. Not in an explosive way, not like a car crash, more like a crack in the windshield. Thin, almost invisible at first. But once it starts, it only spreads. I started thinking about other cracks. Things I hadn't noticed or chose not to notice. And isn't that the most brutal part? Realizing how much you let slide because you wanted to believe it wasn't what it looked like? There was that Wednesday 2 months ago, she came home late from inventory updates. Her cheeks were flushed, hair tousled, blouse a deep wine color I'd never seen before. She said she had dinner with the training team, that they went out for drinks after. I asked who, but she said it was a blur of names. Then she laughed, poured herself a glass of wine, and disappeared into the shower. I didn't ask again. Then came the new perfume. Subtle but unfamiliar. Not the lavender she'd worn for years, this one was muskier, richer, like something out of a catalog. I noticed it one morning when I hugged her goodbye. It clung to her coat and hair. When I commented on it, she brushed it off. A sample from the hotel, she said. They're always throwing those in with the room keys. It made sense. Sort of. But now I could feel the wrongness I hadn't let myself acknowledge. The unease I'd swallowed because confronting it would have meant opening a door I didn't want to know was there. Noah had said something a few weeks ago, something that barely registered until now. We were in the garage, changing the oil on the truck. He said Mom had talked to a man in the car outside his school. He had a nice suit, Noah had said. I thought he was like a manager or something. I asked what they talked about and he said, I don't know. He was smiling. She smiled too. At the time, I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a coworker. Maybe someone from the hotel management. I didn't want to make Noah feel uncomfortable, so I let it go. Another mistake. Then there was the phone. Once upon a time, Haley and I shared everything: playlists, passwords, dumb Pinterest boards for recipes we'd never try. But over the past year, she'd started locking her phone at night. Nothing extreme, just casual. She'd prop it face down on the nightstand, screen dimmed, never buzzing. One night, I'd asked if she changed her passcode. Yeah, she said, not looking up from her laptop. Company policy. We're supposed to secure everything. I believed her. Because I wanted to. Same with the laptop. She used to work at the kitchen table while I did bills or packed lunches. Now she disappeared into the bedroom to work, door closed, music playing low enough to muffle her voice during calls. When I knocked once to ask if she wanted coffee, she jumped like I'd caught her doing something wrong. Said she was just stressed that the client was intense. So I backed off. Backing off became a habit. That's the thing nobody tells you: cheating doesn't always show up with lipstick on the collar or strange calls at midnight. Sometimes it looks like subtle shifts in routine. The slow unspooling of closeness. The way us becomes you and me again. Quiet, almost polite detachment. I used to think the worst thing a partner could do was lie. Now I realize it's when they stop letting you in. When they build a life next to yours instead of with you. I thought about the training trips. They'd started once a quarter. Then it became monthly. Leadership weekends, she called them. I was proud at first. Haley had always been ambitious. We met in our 20s when I fixed her old Ford at the shop. She was fierce even then, quick to laugh, quicker to challenge me. We used to spend hours talking about the life we wanted to build. I thought we were building it. But lately, her eyes weren't meeting mine as often. Her smiles felt automatic. Like she'd rehearsed them for someone else. I should have noticed. I should have asked more questions when she came back from Albuquerque with a new necklace and said it was from a conference gift bag. Who gives away sterling silver necklaces at hotel conferences? But she said it so breezily I didn't push. I was tired. Work had been hectic. Bills piled up. And somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that loving her meant trusting her without proof. Now, I wasn't so sure. We passed a road sign for Santa Fe, just 50 miles to go. The desert rolled on beside us, and I gripped the wheel a little tighter. The closer we got, the harder my heart pounded. Not because I was excited, because I was scared. What if I was wrong? What if I was right? I checked the rearview mirror. Emma was drooling on her pillow, Noah still curled up tight. The innocence of their sleep made me ache. They had no idea that I wasn't just taking them on a spontaneous trip. That this was my way of getting answers without tipping anyone off. Haley thought she'd be spending the weekend working through slideshows in a quiet hotel suite. She didn't know we were coming. I hadn't told her because I wanted to surprise her. At least, that's what I told myself when I loaded the kids into the car and said, "Let's go see Mom." The truth? Deep down, I needed to see her face when I showed up unannounced. I needed to see the truth for myself. In her eyes, her body language, her hesitation. I couldn't keep living in the gray anymore. I passed a rest stop and debated pulling over. My hands were sweaty, and I felt like I'd been holding my breath for an hour, but I kept driving. The hotel wasn't much further now, and neither was the truth. By the time we reached the edge of Santa Fe, the sun was already low, casting long shadows across the adobe buildings and art galleries. The kids were wide awake again, full of questions about where we were staying, if there was a pool, if Mom would be surprised. I kept my tone upbeat, told them she'd be thrilled, that we were just dropping by to say hello. I didn't say anything about the knot in my chest or the way my hands shook when I typed the hotel's name into the GPS. I'd picked a modest place for the kids and me, a chain hotel with a kitchenette and a small arcade. They didn't care about amenities. They were just excited. But I had other plans. After we checked in, I got them settled with cartoons and snacks. Emma pulled out her markers and started drawing a picture for Haley. "I'm gonna make it sparkle," she said, already scribbling glittery stars. Noah gave me a look that lingered a bit too long. "You okay, Dad?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, buddy. Just tired." He didn't buy it, but he didn't press either. Just nodded and went back to his tablet. I told them I had to run a quick errand. Promised ice cream when I got back. "Don't answer the door," I reminded them. "Call me if you need anything." The drive to Haley's resort took all of 15 minutes. It was one of those upscale desert retreats, the kind you see in travel magazines with names like Mesa Serenity or Sunstone Refuge, the kind of place where people went to disconnect or hide. The building was modern and sleek, with soft music playing in the lobby and the faint smell of eucalyptus in the air. I walked up to the front desk, unsure of what I was going to say until the words were already coming out. "Hi, I'm here to check in on Haley Brooks. She's my wife. I just want to drop something off. Could you confirm her room number for me?" The woman behind the desk smiled politely. "Just a moment." She typed something into her computer, her eyes scanning the screen. "She's in suite 214, she said. "Would you like me to call up for you?" I shook my head. "No, thank you. I'll head up." My legs felt stiff as I made my way to the elevator. I wasn't sure what I expected to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe just her in pajamas, surprised but happy to see me. Maybe it would all be a huge misunderstanding. The box, the late nights, the perfume. Maybe I'd built it all up in my head. But my gut said otherwise. The hallway was quiet, carpeted, dimly lit. I stopped in front of 214 and listened. Nothing. I raised my hand to knock, and froze. Voices. Muffled, but unmistakably two of them. One male, one female. A laugh. Low, close. Then the soft creak of a bed frame. I stepped back. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear. I walked away from the door all the way down to the end of the hall, leaned against the wall and tried to breathe. Every part of me was screaming to confront her, to pound on that door and demand the truth. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I waited. I don't know how long I stood there. 10 minutes? 20? The hall stayed empty. I stared at the door until my vision blurred. Finally, I heard movement. The latch clicked. The door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, maybe late 30s. Athletic build. Dressed in workout shorts and a t-shirt, towel slung over one shoulder. He looked relaxed, like he belonged there. Like he wasn't sneaking around. He didn't notice me at first. He pulled the door shut behind him, locked it with a practiced hand, then turned and froze when he saw me. I don't know what he saw in my face, but his smile vanished. We locked eyes for maybe 3 seconds. Then he nodded like he understood something unspoken and walked past without a word. I didn't stop him. I couldn't. A minute later, the door opened again. Haley stepped out. She was wearing a man's button-down shirt, not one of mine. Her hair was tied up, damp. She looked content, glowing even. Until she saw me. She stopped cold. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. We stood there in silence. 10 years of marriage, and we had nothing to say to each other. I wanted to speak. I wanted to yell or cry or ask why. But nothing came out. I just stood there, the weight of everything crashing down at once. She stepped forward slightly. Ryan. That was all she said. That was all she needed to say. Because her face said the rest. I nodded slowly, turned around, and walked back down the hallway. I didn't look back. I don't remember the walk to the car. I just remember the feeling. That heavy, hollow collapse inside me. Like my chest had been carved out and left to echo. The truth didn't come with sirens or a dramatic confession. It came quietly. Casually. Through a door that should have stayed closed. By the time I got back to the hotel, the kids were in their pajamas, half asleep in a pillow fort they'd made from the couch cushions. Emma handed me her drawing glitter stars, a smiling stick figure family holding hands. I made it for Mommy, she said, yawning. I stared at it longer than I should have. My fingers trembled. It's beautiful, I said softly. She's gonna love it. I tucked them in gently, turned out the light, and sat in the bathroom for an hour with the door closed, just listening to the quiet. There was no anger. No outburst. Just the deep, aching knowledge that the moment I'd feared had arrived. Not with noise, but with silence. I woke up before the sun. Not because of the noise, the hotel was quiet, but because my body refused to let me sleep. My brain was on fire, cycling through the same set of images and questions, Haley's stunned face in the hallway. The man in gym clothes locking the door behind him. The silence that followed. But none of it mattered now. Not in this room. Not with Emma asleep in one bed, her arm wrapped around a stuffed fox, and Noah curled into a tight ball in the other, clutching his hoodie like a shield. I sat in the chair between them for almost an hour, just watching them breathe. That's when it hit me. Whatever pain I was going through, whatever betrayal had just detonated in my chest, it wasn't their burden. Not yet. Maybe not ever if I could help it. They didn't deserve to have their world upended because of something they had no part in. So I made a choice. I got up, showered, and got dressed before either of them stirred. By the time they woke up, I had breakfast laid out, muffins, juice, and some fruit I'd picked up downstairs. Emma was the first to sit up, rubbing her eyes. Is today Mommy Day? I forced a smile that felt more like a stretch. Yup, but we're going to do something fun first. Sightseeing. You guys ever been to a desert art museum? Noah groaned. Can we do something not boring? I'll make you a deal, I said, buttering a muffin with hands that barely stopped shaking. Museum first. Then go-karts. His eyes lit up. For real? Yeah. I'll even race you. Emma beamed. Can we get ice cream too? I nodded. Of course. Ice cream for dinner if you want. She giggled. You're the best, Daddy. I smiled and felt something splinter inside. The day became an exercise in pretending, and I threw myself into the role with everything I had. We went to a museum where Emma dragged me to every weird sculpture that looked like it came from space. Noah pretended to be a robot for half an hour. I laughed when I was supposed to. Took pictures. Pointed out silly details in the art that made them laugh. But under all of it, I felt like I was screaming. We had lunch at a food truck park. I barely tasted the tacos I ordered. My mind was still in the hallway of that resort, back at the moment Haley stepped into view wearing another man's shirt. Her expression was seared into my memory, guilt, shock, fear. But not regret. Not once did she try to reach me. She didn't call. Didn't text. Nothing. As if that moment had already answered everything for her too. I didn't know what to make of that. Was she ashamed? Was she relieved I had found out so she wouldn't have to lie anymore? I tried not to think about it while helping Emma pick toppings for her ice cream. More sprinkles, she said, like, a lot. You got it, kiddo. Later, Noah tugged at my sleeve as we watched Emma ride a carousel. Dad? Yeah, buddy? Is something wrong with Mom? The question caught me off guard. I crouched down to his level, trying to keep my voice steady. Why do you ask? He looked down. She's been weird lately. Not like Mom. Quiet. I dunno. You just seem sad now too. I sighed. You're really observant, you know that? He shrugged. Just worried. I nodded slowly. Hey, your job is to be a kid. Let me handle the rest, okay? He looked uncertain, but he nodded. Okay. The next stop was the arcade. I let them pick every game, even when they chose the loudest, most obnoxious ones. We spent almost an hour in there, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like bees, the air sticky with popcorn and neon colors. I played air hockey with Emma and let her win. Noah beat me in a racing game and didn't let me forget it. For a few hours, the world felt normal. Or at least, the version of normal I was determined to protect. But every smile came with a cost. Every laugh I faked felt like a crack in my ribs. It took everything in me not to cave, not to excuse myself and disappear into a hallway somewhere to cry. I knew what was waiting. I knew that at some point I'd have to talk to Haley. I didn't want to. Not yet. Not while the kids still had hope. Not while they still looked at me like I had everything under control. Back at the hotel that evening, Noah turned on the TV while Emma asked to take a bath. I helped her fill the tub and gave her one of those fizzy bath bombs from the gift shop. She squealed when it turned the water pink. It's like strawberry milk, she said, kicking her feet. I sat just outside the bathroom door while she splashed. My phone buzzed once on the table. It was Haley. Just her name on the screen. No message. No call. Just a notification that she was typing and then nothing. I stared at it for a full minute before I turned it over and slid it under a magazine. Later, I tucked the kids in again, and this time I stayed in the room. I didn't go hide in the bathroom. I lay on top of the covers, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. I thought about what the next few days would look like. About whether the kids would understand if we didn't go see Haley. About how much of the truth I could hold off on revealing. About custody and lawyers and court dates. About the life I thought I was building and how quietly it had unraveled. I never expected I'd have to perform this kind of emotional triage. That I'd become the buffer between my kids and the fallout of betrayal. But there I was. Playing the part. Smiling for their sake. Carrying the weight alone. Because someone had to. Because it damn sure wasn't going to be her. The next morning came with the kind of silence that felt deliberate. The kids were still asleep, tangled in the hotel sheets, the TV softly playing reruns of a cartoon I didn't recognize. I stood by the window, sipping bad coffee from a paper cup, watching the world outside move like it didn't know mine had stopped. The phone buzzed once. Then again. Haley. First a text, "Can we talk today?" Then another, "Please." I didn't respond. I had nothing left to say, and yet too much. I didn't know what she expected. An apology for showing up? A calm, adult conversation? Closure? What kind of closure was there to be had when the whole damn door had already been slammed in my face? Emma stirred first. She stretched, yawned, and crawled out of bed with that kind of warm innocence that cuts deep when you're carrying something you shouldn't be. "Is it morning?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. "Yeah, sweetheart. Want some cereal?" She nodded and climbed into the armchair by the window. "Is Mommy coming today?" I hesitated. "Not sure yet," I said softly. "She's real busy with her training." Emma didn't push. She just nodded like she believed me. Or maybe she wanted to. Noah got up a few minutes later. He didn't say anything at first, just sat at the little table and poured himself some cereal. I watched him as I packed a small bag for a nature walk, one more day of distraction before whatever came next. "Can we go hiking today?" he asked. "Thought you'd never ask." We drove out to the hills just north of the city where the trails were dry and rocky and the air smelled like juniper and dust. Emma picked up pebbles shaped like hearts. Noah walked ahead, more serious than usual. Halfway through the trail, he stopped and turned around. "Dad?" I wiped my forehead with my sleeve. "Yeah?" "You don't have to lie." The words hit harder than I expected. He kicked at the dirt. "I know something's wrong. With Mom." I didn't say anything. I just looked at him, at his small frame, his clenched jaw, the way his eyes didn't quite meet mine. "Did she do something?" he asked. "Is that why you're sad?" I sat down on a nearby rock, motioned for him to sit too. "Come here, bud." He sat next to me, quiet, waiting. "Look," I began, "sometimes adults mess up. They hurt each other. Even when they don't mean to. Even when they love each other." He frowned. "Did she hurt you?" I didn't want to answer. But the silence would answer for me. "I think I saw something once," he said, his voice lower now. "On her phone. It was a picture. Her and some guy. They were really close. Like, closer than friends. I swallowed hard. When was that? A while ago. I didn't say anything. I thought maybe it was for work. I nodded slowly. I'm sorry, buddy. He looked at me. I didn't want it to be real. I rested my hand on his shoulder. Me neither. He didn't cry. He didn't even look angry. Just tired, too tired for a boy his age. And that broke me more than anything. We didn't talk much the rest of the hike. Emma filled the silence with questions about lizards and birds, unaware of the quiet exchange that had passed between her brother and me. I let her chatter fill the spaces we couldn't. Back at the hotel, I took the kids swimming. It was easier than sitting in that room and waiting for my phone to buzz again. Emma clung to me in the water like she used to when she was 3. Noah swam laps, trying to beat his time with each go. Every so often he'd glance at me, a quiet check-in that meant more than words. That evening, while Emma colored on the bed and the cartoons buzzed in the background, Noah came and sat next to me. No prompting, no announcement. He leaned his head against my arm and whispered, "Thanks for not lying today." And that's when I realized he already knew. He had known for a while. He just needed me to admit it, not with rage or a breakdown, but with truth. So I made a promise. I would protect them. Both of them. But in different ways. For Noah, it would be honesty, clarity, strength without chaos. For Emma, it would be softness, a cushion between her and the reality she wasn't old enough to carry. That night, after they were asleep, I stepped outside onto the small balcony. The city was quiet, the desert sky a thick navy blanket sprinkled with stars. I pulled out my phone. Haley had sent another message. "Just one word, please." I stared at it for a long time. Then typed back. "Tomorrow. Noon. You come here. Alone." I hit send and turned the phone over. Tomorrow, the story would change again. But tonight, I just needed silence and a few more hours of pretending this wasn't our life now. She showed up right on time. I watched her from the window before I opened the door. She looked smaller than usual, not physically, but in the way people do when they know something irreversible has happened. Her shoulders were stiff, her mouth pressed into a line that tried to say she had control over this. But her eyes told the truth. "Hi," she said. I didn't respond. Just stepped aside and let her in. The kids were with the concierge, coloring, or playing some hotel version of tag. I'd arranged for a few hours. It was all the time I was willing to give her. She stood in the middle of the room for a beat before sitting down at the small table. I stayed standing. "I don't know where to start," she said, voice fragile. "Try the truth," I said. Haley looked up, pain flickering across her face. "It's been going on for a few months. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just..." I felt alone. Like you didn't see me anymore. I clenched my jaw. "So you found someone else to see you?" "It wasn't about that," she said quickly. "It was about me. About feeling appreciated and noticed. I know it's not an excuse. You're right. It's not." She looked down. "I hate myself for it. But I didn't plan it. We started talking during a conference. It got complicated." I folded my arms, trying to stay steady. "Complicated is what you call it?" She flinched. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I swear I am. I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did." She nodded. "Yes, I did." The silence stretched again. She finally whispered, "Can we try again? Please. We have a life, a family. I'll go to counseling. Whatever it takes." I studied her. This wasn't begging, it was bargaining. Not with guilt, but desperation. "There's no going back," I said quietly. "You ended something, Haley. You just didn't say it out loud until now." She started crying, hands shaking in her lap. But I didn't reach out. I didn't comfort her. It wasn't anger I felt. It was clarity. 3 weeks later, it was done. The divorce was finalized without much resistance. She didn't fight for custody, maybe guilt, maybe shame. She moved to a nearby city, not far enough to be gone, not close enough to be part of our lives again. I got the house. I got the kids. Noah barely spoke to her during visits. Emma asked when Mommy was coming home, and I gently told her that sometimes grown-ups live in different places. She nodded like she understood, even though she didn't. Not fully. I didn't talk badly about Haley. Not to them. Not even to myself. The damage had already been done. Speaking it into the air wouldn't undo it. Instead, I built. I turned our garage into a small workshop, nothing fancy, just space to make things with my hands again. Emma helped me paint one of the tool cabinets purple. Noah made a shelf for his books. It became our place. Nights were quiet. But they weren't lonely. I found peace in the stillness, in the absence of tension. Meals became less about filling time and more about connecting. I laughed more with the kids. Listened more. They noticed. It wasn't perfect. Some nights I'd catch myself looking at the empty chair at the dinner table. But the ache was different now. It wasn't longing. It was recognition. I hadn't just lost a wife. I had found the truth. And from that we began again.